It's 2017. Hooray for a cliché countdown topic! "2016. I played a lot of games, both new and old. Despite me not having actually played many of the games I bought in 2015, and as such I'm going to go over my favorites from the year. As you can see from the title, it's going to be a little different. I decided to go with 12 entries, one for each month. As that's the case, I figured I should clarify some rules. 1. It has to be a game I played for the first time in 2016. No remakes, remasters, or ports, unless there's a huge change compared to what I originally played. 2. Because of the one for each month rule, there will not be a limit of one per franchise. 3. There is no number 3. With those out of the way, let's get started! How did I spend my time in October, the spookiest month of them all? With an RPG called Omega Quintet that's about idols that fight monsters. Didn't expect to ever say that. Omega Quintet takes place in a world that is plagued by Blair, this weird phenomenon that causes all sorts of problems. Like summoning monsters! Because of course that's a feature! Anyway, the only people able to defeat the Blair are the Verse Maidens, who utilize the power of song and dance to destroy it. The game follows Tact and Atoha, Tact being one of the few people that don't really care about Verse Maidens, and Atoha being one of the biggest fans of the only remaining Verse Maiden, Momoka. Long story short, things happen, they get attacked by Blair, and it's discovered that Atoha is able to defeat the Blair with her singing, meaning she can become a Verse Maiden! But because she gets so nervous all the time, Tact ends up being roped into becoming the Verse Maiden's manager. From there they go on to fight the Mad, the monsters that are summoned, and destroying Blair. And as you progress through the game, you gain a few more Verse Maidens. Kanedeko, who is always full of energy and often gets into trouble because of it. Nene, who's very shy and timid and doesn't have a lot of confidence in her ability to be a Verse Maiden. Sounds a lot like me with YouTube. Kyoka, who's very serious but has some trouble opening up to others, and Arya, who was attacked by Blair before the game began and now has some odd behavioral habits that make her hard to talk to. The first thing to point out about the gameplay is that outside of battles it's pretty much Hyperdimension Neptunia. Okay, actually, that makes sense. The battles themselves are pretty standard, though they do have some standout features. Each attack has a range to it, which, depending on if the enemy is in the sweet spot or the bad area, can affect the damage output of the attacks. And while the Verse Maidens do most of the fighting, Tact does play a role in the battles. He's paired up with one Verse Maiden of your choice, and after they attack, you can press a button to make Tact attack as well, and if that Verse Maiden is attacked, Tact can jump in and reduce how much damage they get hit for. However, what puts the game this low on the list is that despite the battle system being fun, I have a hard time actually feeling like I'm doing much damage, despite making use of weaknesses and chaining attacks together. In fact, one boss I couldn't beat doing that, but did defeat by holding the skip animation button and spamming X to do the normal attack. Oh, there's also the annoying mechanic of having their outfits breaks, which I find happens way too often and just wastes time and money because I keep having to go back and repair it. Alright, there's also the fact that due to my unhealthy habit of buying games before I finish others, means that I keep getting distracted from this game to the point where I haven't finished yet. Why do I do this? Seriously, who put me in charge of money? That was a bad idea on their part. They should be fired. So this is what happens when you combine Batman and Lord of the Rings. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, made by Monolith Productions, takes place somewhere in the 60-year gap between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and follows Talion, a ranger of Gondor who is dead. Whoops, looks like the game's never mind. Now he's alive, and has wraith powers because this guy named Celebrimbor merged with him during the sacrifice Talion was used in. Together they set out to uncover who Celebrimbor is. Alright, I forgot to mention he has amnesia, and avenge Talion's family. So my average Wednesday. Okay, good to know. The game is open world, allowing you to explore Mordor to your heart's content. Okay, well technically the map is split up into a couple pieces which you gain access to throughout the story, but who cares? The combat is very similar to the Batman Arkham games, but plays a little bit slower and you're equipped with a bow that you can use to pick enemies off. It makes the game stand out compared to Batman. In a good way. The game also has a heavy emphasis on the Nemesis system. Basically, when you die, you're revived instead of just, oh yeah, that didn't happen. Meaning if an enemy kills you, They're then promoted and become stronger. You're also eventually able to take control of the Uruk and help them take a position of power within the army, which you can then use to your advantage to kill other Uruk. Overall, I honestly don't really have anything else to say, except the game is overall really fun, though I should probably get back to the game and finally play the DLC, but who has time for that when you buy games faster than you can finish them? That's not a joke, I've seriously been getting way too many games, so I haven't gotten around to the DLC yet. Somebody stop me, please. My wallet is crying. Ever have those awkward moments when you get a game but it takes you a good couple months to play it? No? Just me. Okay then, let's just distract everyone with Xenoblade Chronicles X then! Xenoblade Chronicles X is an RPG made by Monolith Soft, and while it shares its name with Xenoblade Chronicles, it's pretty much a different game entirely. The game takes place on the planet Mira, where the last remaining humans have crash-landed after fleeing Earth when it was caught in a battle between two alien races. You play as a created character who happens to be an amnesiac for the sole purpose of being able to explain everything to the player. Amnesia aside, this is one of the first things I really like about X. The character customization is pretty in-depth, with lots of hairs, colors, and all that to choose from, along with having the ability to choose what voice you want. Wait, Gary Lowenthal, Bryce Papenbrook, Keith Silverstein, Robbie Damon, Ben Diskin, Adam Holden, and Dan Warren? And you people expect me to choose? Don't make me! I don't wanna! Along with that, your armor is split into 5 categories, and you're able to set display armor so you don't have to be like some RPGs where you have to sacrifice your looks for good stats. Another thing I love is that the game is fully open world. You can go anywhere you want, pretty much right off the bat. All 5 continents are fair game, though it's probably not that great of an idea to just immediately run to the hardest area of the game, because you will most definitely die a lot. And I just want to say, holy cow, is exploring the world so much fun. Running and jumping around the world is just a blast, and once you get your scale, that's the big mech thing. Moving around is even more fun as you can travel much faster and jump up what would normally be unclimbable. And then your scale gets the ability to fly and say goodbye to any boundaries. All that said, the game is only at number 10 because while I find the game fun and the story good, it's a bit lacking compared to a lot of other games. And there's also the fact that the voices you choose are only used on occasion when you complete battles. I mean, seriously, I want more Yuri Lowenthal. Or maybe I should go with Bryce Papenbrook. Or maybe Ben Diskin. Or Keith Silverstein. Or maybe I should play as a girl and go with Aaron Fitzgerald. Or maybe... So, you were expecting Monster Hunter Generations on here, weren't you? Too bad. God Eater Resurrection happened. First off, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. The reason Monster Hunter Generations wasn't picked was because, as someone who's played every entry since Tri, Monster Hunter has become a little bit samey. But when I played God Eater Resurrection, it was like a breath of fresh air. The first part that really stood out to me was just how much more effort Resurrection put into its story. It takes off as you take control of a young, new type God Eater, and have to learn the ropes. After that, you're pretty much just killing the origami for the rest of the game. Okay, yes, I'm being vague on the story because I'm not that far into the game, sue me. Now what I'm describing may sound on par with Monster Hunter, but the way it's presented shows that the developers actually cared. I mean, there's cutscenes and voice actors, both of which aren't in Monster Hunter except for a few key points. The gameplay also stands out from Monster Hunter. The basic mechanics are the same as you run around and use your weapon to cut away at the monster you're after. However, in God Eater, you can freely jump around, you are equipped with a melee and ranged weapon that you can switch between at the press of a button, and your God Arc can devour your enemies. When you do it when they're dead, it's pretty much as if you carved them. But if done when they're still alive, you then enter burst mode, which increases your attack, health regen, step distance and speed, allows you to jump in midair, gives you decreased stamina consumption, and gives you 3 special origami bullets, aka give those monsters a piece of themselves! And then there's the customization. Both games give you the ability to customize your character, but God Eater's is a lot more in-depth as you can customize pretty much everything you can in Monster Hunter, along with having accessories you can change and their voices. And holy cow, to avoid rambling, all I'm gonna say is picture pretty much all of the playable character VAs from Xenoblade Chronicles X, subtract a couple, and then multiply that number by 5, including numerous big voice actors, and then you get all of my indecisiveness. God Eater Resurrection just felt so much more interesting than Monster Hunter Generations. Everything just felt so new when all Monster Hunter gave me was the same thing I've been playing for years. And between those two options, there was no contest. Also, no, seriously, like, the voice actors, holy cow. So back in April, I finally expanded my horizons and got a PS3. And then fate attacked my wallet by putting Persona 4 Arena Ultimax on sale pretty much right after. Persona 4 Arena Ultimax is a fighting game spin-off, but not really because it's canon, of the Persona series made by Arc System Works, aka the people behind BlazBlue, and I'm already in love. One of the first things I love about the game, it's so easy to get into. It plays similarly to BlazBlue, but rather differently, if that makes any sense. It has the same basic mechanics, but introduces new ones as well, such as including personas as 2 of the attack buttons, and then there's the auto combo, where you just press the light attack a bunch, and it chains together attacks. And then there's the insta-kills, which require your SP to be at 100 and on match point, and all it takes is the same command for every character. And that's just the basics of what you need to know. There's so much about this game that I've been playing it since April, and I'm still not sure about all the mechanics. But that's where the genius is. Beginners have a game that's easy to get into and play, and veterans or more competitive players have plenty of complex mechanics to use. Another thing I really like is the story. It does a really good job of keeping with what Persona is known for, while at the same time changing the gameplay. Oh, also one of the new villains is voiced by Todd Haberkorn, and he makes lots of puns, and that's 100% win in my book. Honestly, the only reason why this game isn't higher on the list is because it being a fighting game means that I'm not really that good at it. And there's me not being able to find almost any online matches, so I'm stuck fighting the computer, which can only stay not boring for so long.
Now, let's do this. If you please.
Okay, hold. Timeout. What did I just watch? And why do I find myself wanting more of it? Akiba's Trip Undead and Undressed, a game where you go around stripping vampires that feed off of human greed down to their underwear in order to defeat them. I never knew I needed this in my life. Okay, but enough about how ridiculous this sounds. The game follows Nanashi, who, after going into a suspicious job interview, is turned into a synthester. That's the name of those vampires, by the way. But for some reason, he's not affected like the others because they're all following this one guy named Zenya. He's then saved by this girl named Shizuku. Things happen, Nanashi is kissed by Shizuku to save his life, and then Nanashi brings her to the Akiba Freedom Fighters, which is basically just a club that hangs out, talks about anime and games and stuff, and sometimes takes on jobs from people in Akiba to help out. Anyway, they go there and Shizuku explains what's happening, and the Akiba Freedom Fighters decide to help her defeat the synthester threat. And more things happen, but that's pretty much all you need to know right now. The game itself is a beat 'em up where you target your opponent's clothes to deal damage to them, and eventually, bye-bye synthester! Though for some reason, everyone in the city fights like this, from random otakus to the police. Embarrassment, the best way to get people to submit to the law. There's quite a bit of depth to the combat as well, seeing as all the different weapons you can wield all have their own moves which change up your fighting style. Then there's the clothes you can buy all over Akiba, and the ability to fuse clothes and weapons to make them more powerful. Oh, and let's not forget the ultimate technique. If you combo strip enough people down to their underwear, you'll get another button prompt, and for no reason at all, you'll strip them of all their underwear. Wait, what? Hold on. Why am I happy about this again? I'm concerned with my sanity. Honestly, one of the best parts of this game is just how well they created Akihabara within a video game. It feels like a real living city. People of all kinds wandering the street, people handing out flyers, people trying to convince passerbys to stop at their store, and real life ads all over the place. I mean, we've got games like Disgaea 4, Mind Zero, Conception 2, and Trails of Cold Steel, which at the time were all games that were coming out. Wait. No, wait, please, I'm sorry, I didn't, I'll get to you soon. I didn't mean to leave you unfinished. I swear, I didn't mean it. Don't haunt me. Ah! You know, I never once considered that the rule of 3 would apply to me talking about games that feature a ripping clothes mechanic. Also, I'm finally talking about Hyperdimension Neptunia. Holy cow, it took too long. Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed is a spin-off game of the Neptunia series developed by Tamsoft. The plot of the game can pretty much be summed up as the CPUs and CPU candidates want to increase their reputation. Journalist Dengekiko and Famitsu both approach the group and offer to report on the group as they complete quests. The plot is pretty simple and the gameplay is definitely the main focus. Instead of being a turn-based RPG like the main series, Action Unleashed is an action game that plays much like Senran Kagura and other games. All 10 characters start out in their normal forms, but have their HDD forms available as well after building up the meter for it. There's also the mechanic I hinted towards at the beginning of the entry. Basically, the character's clothes can rip. This happens in a couple of ways. First, you taking damage. Second, you using heavy attacks. This seems like it could get annoying, but it can actually be very useful, as when your clothes rip, you instantly gain access to your HDD form, meaning you can then kick even more butt. Overall, the game is just a ton of fun. The gameplay is solid, the characters are so much fun to listen to, like always, and it's just a blast all around. Oh, and Uni's so freaking broken in this game once she transforms into HDD form. For most missions, you hardly need anyone else besides her. Neptune may be best girl still, but Uni, you are definitely up there. So, embarrassing confession time. This is only the third main series Pokemon game I own. Pokemon Sun and Moon. Like the majority of the internet, I was really hyped for their release. Though not as much as some, but I still decided to actually pre-order them. And I do mean them, as I got both. And this decision to pre-order turned out to be a good call, as the day before they came out, they arrived in the mail and I got a head start on my Pokemon adventure. And this adventure, holy cow, I loved it so much. The changes in mechanic like ride Pokemon, seeing type effectiveness in battle, and all the rest really helped me enjoy the journey a lot more than in previous gens, and the trials replacing gym battles made everything so much more memorable and lovable than before. Added that so many great new Pokemon, and a bunch of new characters that are all so good I literally can't decide who my favorite is. You've got a great Pokemon game. Though it doesn't get any higher because, well, there wasn't much to do after you finish the main game, and as someone who isn't really into competitive battling, I don't really bother battling online all that much except for with my friends. Also, I just really like the rest of the games on this list, so there's that too. So, this is awkward. September's game was supposed to be Infamous Second Son. Except I finally got around to playing more than just the opening of Trails of Cold Steel, and holy cow is there no way I am not talking about this game. Trails of Cold Steel is an RPG made by Nihon Falcom. It follows Rean Swarzer as he begins his life at Thor's Military Academy, being a part of the newly formed Class 7, which is the 6th class by the way, which doesn't separate between nobles and commoners, and whose main goal is to research the prototype tactical orbiment Arcus, along with helping out those in need. The game is pretty straightforward as far as RPGs go. You progress through the story doing various quests, you interact with your classmates to increase your level with them to gain skills and such in battle, you answer questions during class, you go into dungeons, you can cook, fish, read books, basically think Persona, but take away the Personas and add a bunch more fantasy. The gameplay is typical for the series. When you enter into a battle, you're put into an arena which you position yourself in to fight the enemies. Though unlike other RPGs like Neptunia where you move and then attack, moving is an action that takes up its own turn. Though if you select attack and choose an enemy that's not in range, your character will actually move to get into range, so at least there's that. You have 4 main ways of attacking. Normal attacks, arts, your magic attack, which require casting time, meaning that they don't usually take effect right away, crafts, which are special to each character and require CP to use, but don't need casting time, and S-crafts, which require at least 100 CP and can be used even if it's not the character's turn, making using them strategically very important. These different forms of attacking all have their place, as well as using arts, crafts, and items to buff or heal your party, which makes the combat very interesting and fun. Overall, the combat is really cool, the story and world are really interesting, the characters are fun, and oh my gosh, Blade is addicting! I've just been having so much fun playing this game so far, and to point out just how much, as of me writing this, I'm only in the 2nd chapter. And it's number 4! Okay, I kind of cheated. And by that I mean I bought this game back towards the end of 2015, but because I had the 1 per franchise rule on my list of that year, I could only talk about either this game or the previous one in the series. So I purposely put off playing this game until the clock struck midnight and it was officially 2016. And then Virtue's Last Reward took me to the moon! Virtue's Last Reward, the second game in the Zero Escape series, is a visual novel puzzle game that follows Sigma, a senior in college, as he's knocked out and abducted one day, and wakes up to find himself trapped in a facility along with 8 others, where they're forced by Zero the Third, an AI that looks like a rabbit, it's always the cute ones, to play the Nonary game Ambidex Edition, a game where they must investigate rooms to find these keycards. They then use those cards to enter the elevators they woke up in, and choose to either ally or betray the person they were paired with during their investigation. The goal is to get 9 points so they can open the big door marked with a 9 and escape. Though this being Zero Escape, it's not that simple, as there's plenty of danger and conflict to get in the way of everyone escaping with their lives. The game is mostly a visual novel, but features puzzle rooms with the goal being to unlock the exit. Okay, technically they unlock this box and get the keycard and other stuff, but you can't leave until you do that anyway, so it's pretty much the same thing. The puzzle rooms are all really cool, and some are quite the challenge, though they're no match for my brain! Hey Jacob, what's the answer to the mixing drinks puzzle in the lounge? What? I'm using my resources! Jokes aside, I really liked the game. The plot, the characters, the puzzles, the OST, all of it. It was a great way to start off my year. Are any of you actually surprised by this? Zero Time Dilemma, the third and currently final game in the Zero Escape series, is a visual novel puzzle game that follows 3 characters: Carlos, Diana, and Q, as they and 6 others are trapped in the Mars testing facility DCOM by a mysterious man named Zero, who is forcing them to play the decision game. The only way to escape is to input 6 codes into a panel to open the X door, and the only way to get those codes is when somebody dies. Add to that, every 90 minutes the players of the decision game are injected with drugs that knock them out and make them forget everything that happened in those 90 minutes, and you've got a very interesting setup. Specifically because the game features a fragment mechanic. Instead of following the story in a linear fashion, you choose a fragment you want to play and you slowly figure out what's happening. Along with that, the game has taken the next step in terms of visuals, as while it's still technically a visual novel, the novel sections are actually cutscenes which play on their own without input from the player and feature full voice acting and various camera angles. The puzzle rooms are just as good as the previous entries in the series, though in many cases the goal is instead to investigate the room and solve the puzzle Zero has made for the players instead of escaping the room, though it's much more interesting that way as it's not always the same thing. Overall, I felt Zero Time Dilemma was just as good as the previous games, though I ranked them all very, very closely to each other. Zero Time Dilemma really only gets higher than Virtue's Last Reward on this list because Zero Time Dilemma was the only game in the series that I actually had to wait to get my hands on, and as such my hype for the game built as I followed it before its release. Zero Time Dilemma lived up to the hype I had for it, and that just kind of made it more memorable. You know, it only now occurs to me that Zero Time Dilemma was only number 2. Brain? What beat it? Oh, right. That explains it! Steins Gate Zero, the game that I'm actually bothering to have a spoiler warning on, so skip to this time if you don't want spoilers for Steins Gate. With that warning out of the way, it takes place in the middle of Steins Gate's true ending, and while that may be a confusing way to put it, it makes sense when you play it. Basically, the game starts with Okabe having just accidentally murdered Kurisu while trying to save her life. He then has a breakdown as he and Suzuha return to the present, and instead of viewing the video D-mail and getting the idea to deceive the world, he refuses to try again and pretty much completely shuts down and goes back to being a completely normal college student. Wait, so he's just like me? No! Anyway, the game fast forwards and he eventually meets Maho Hyajo, one of the people involved in a special AI project called Amadeus, which has the memories of Kurisu inside of it. That's all I'm going to cover on the plot because things get very, very interesting soon afterwards. The game itself is fully visual novel. There's no puzzles, no investigations, just hit that X button and advance the dialogue. Though there are some things that you can get involved with, like the Rhine trigger system, which replaces the phone trigger system of the last game, which allows you to message back and forth with your friends instead of replying to their emails and then receiving a reply later in the story. There's not much else to say about the gameplay though, as besides that it's just a visual novel. Now the reason I love Steins Gate Zero so much is because of just how well it adds to the plot of Steins Gate. Like how it introduces new characters who are all great. No, seriously, Maho is amazing, Professor Leskinen is fun, and all of Mayuri's friends, while not being too terribly important to the story, are entertaining. Then there's all the plot that kept me wanting to play more every time I stopped, which was starting to become a problem because I kept playing the game late at night, and then it was 2 AM, and then I needed sleep, but all of the plot literally just happened a minute ago! There's also the fact that while the game still has multiple endings like Steins Gate, they're more focused around your interactions with Amadeus instead of how you respond to messages with your friends, which makes it much easier to get the different endings. In fact, as a showing of this, first time I played Steins Gate, I got the not really good ending that pretty much everyone gets on their first time. First time playing Zero, I ended up getting literally the second best ending, which is actually required if you want to get the best ending. Just overall, I absolutely loved the experience Steins Gate Zero gave me, and what really made me put it up here was that despite me liking Steins Gate, I actually wasn't following this game too closely. In fact, I forgot about it until the day it was released, but when I got it, it just absolutely sucked me in completely. It was pretty much the only game I played until I finished it, and that left an impression that will definitely stick with me for a while.